But investigators say Sarah Logan may have done just the opposite. Police say there may be more.
I mean, let's just be honest. Not a pleasant looking woman. Not a pleasant looking lady at all. No. Sorry. Just being honest. Just not. What's good, YouTube? It's your boy J5. And listen, tonight we are getting into another teacher, female teacher, essaying her students. And this one's a little bit different. I haven't really looked into anyone like this particularly so far. I think the reason why I say this one is a little bit different because it is a Christian school and I don't understand what exactly it is with these female female teachers on the students. I don't understand what it is. I don't know why it's happening, but it seems like it's happening more and more, especially, like I said, female to male. I'm sure it's happening vice versa, the other way around. But we are covering all of it, man. I try to have a fun, different side of it. I'm not a lawyer. Like I always say in my other videos, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a cop. I'm not a prosecutor. But I just like to go dive into these cases. I try to learn about law. I try to learn about different things. And so I can cover these in a way that is like fun and interesting. And, you know, you can go and watch the OG videos, read the original articles. But I try to go through that information and collect it all for you and drop it here on my YouTube channel. So it's all in one place and digestible for you. And with all that being said, let me get into this video. A 35-year-old teacher here, Sarah Logan, a 35-year-old teacher at North River Christian Academy in Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Let's see what they got to say about her.
And to glorify God. But now an Alabama teacher, she was trusted to teach, to guide, and to glorify God. But now an Alabama teacher at a Christian school has been arrested, accused of having.
I mean, would I? Sure. Would I have gone out of my way to? Nah, definitely not.
A sexual relationship with an underage female student. The school's own mission statement promises to, quote, equip students.
Excuse everything I said before. I did not know. I wasn't aware. I thought it was I automatically assumed male student is a female student. I think that is a brand new revelation and one that is a very interesting fact to this case, being the fact that she is a Christian teacher. This is a Christian academy in Alabama. So this is not only is it a kid, but it's a female kid. Double whammy. Whoa.
To glorify God in all they do. But investigators say Sarah Logan may have done just the opposite. Police say there may be more.
I mean, let's just be honest. Not a pleasant looking woman. Not a pleasant looking lady at all. No. Sorry. Just being honest. Just not.
Victims, and they're urging anyone with any information to come forward. I'm Kennedy Walker, and you're watching Law and Crime.
What do we know?
She was a teacher at one of Alabama's most prestigious private Christian schools. Now, Sarah Logan is out of a job and facing criminal charges after being accused of a sexual relationship with a student. According to their website and social media accounts, North River Christian Academy promotes a mission of Christian-centered education, aiming to prepare students to glorify God in all they do. But investigators say Logan's alleged actions are anything but God-glorifying. The 35-year-old wife and mother was arrested on July 18th after the parents of a female student contacted the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office, according to WVUA. They told investigators they had discovered their underage daughter was allegedly involved in a sexual relationship with Logan. The case was referred to the Violent Crimes Unit Sexual Assault Section, which began interviewing witnesses and collecting evidence. That investigation led to a warrant for Logan's arrest. She is now charged with 1 count of school employee engaging in a sex act with a student, but investigators say the case may not stop there. There are concerns other students may have been targeted, and authorities are urging any potential victims to come forward. North River Christian Academy, which charges over $7,000 a year in tuition, confirmed Logan is no longer on staff and released a statement. They said in part, "Our first concern is for the health and welfare for our students, staff, and families. Please respect the privacy of all these parties, contributing to rumors and."
So we're talking about multiple students potentially here.
And suspicions profits no one and contributes only to the hardships experienced by those impacted. They went on to say it should be self-evident to say that this incident is heartrending for all involved. This includes especially the families directly impacted. We have prayed for them and encouraged our entire school family to hold them up in their personal prayers. And here to break down the story with me is victims' rights lawyer John Phillips. John, thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So let's just jump right in. Female teachers accused of sexual misconduct often gets labeled differently. Is there any evidence that gender affects charging decisions or sentencing?
I think if somebody actually took a survey of all of the states across the country in all of the, sex crimes involving students, you would see some level of disparity. And some of it comes just simply with kind of the nature of how anatomy works, right? Like, even though it's regardless, it's statutory rape, if there's cases with penetration with a minor or sex, sometimes the male student gets more blame than the female student, in a way, and it kind of affects how it's ultimately.
I get what he's saying. With the anatomy, that's a valid point. It's a valid point because I always kind of wondered. I thought it was more of just a psychological thing that we kind of did because we look at women as like not necessarily victimizers, but more victims. So when we see them actually being victimized versus them being predatory, we discount it a little bit. But now when he says that, and when he said it that way with the anatomy, it's like when you're sticking something versus you're being poked. It's like if you're the one that's being poked and you're the younger one, it's like you can almost understand why that can be a lot more forcible on one side or the other, if that makes sense. I'm trying to be careful here. YouTube vibes, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to say nothing too crazy.
Ultimately handled, but all of them should be taken as rape cases, as sexual assault cases. It is. The child cannot.
I'm curious what ChatGPT would say about this, because I want to know if there really is a disparity, because he didn't give any statistics there, but I am curious. Is there in the data might not, I'm sure it's out there. But is there a true disparity between men and women when it comes to being charged for sex crimes? Is there a bias that we have where we men get more time and women get less time? And if there is, I wonder if people starting to highlight it in recent memory, is it going to start to change? There is this is interesting. Yes, there is a documented disparity in how men and women are treated in the criminal justice system when it comes to sex crimes, as well as other types of offenses. Sentencing disparities. Multiple studies and criminal justice reports show that men receive significantly harsher sentences than women for the same or similar sex crimes. Women are more likely to avoid prison time altogether or receive shorter sentences, especially if they are first-time offenders, caretakers, or present themselves as remorseful or mentally ill. Example: a 2009 study published in Law and Human Behavior found that men receive 63% longer sentences than women for comparable crimes, even after controlling for things like prior record and severity. Charging and prosecution. Prosecutors are less likely to prosecutors are less likely to charge women with sex crimes, particularly when the victim is male and underage. That's interesting. Female offenders are more often charged with lesser offenses and diverted to alternative sentencing programs such as counseling or probation. Wow. And number 3, public perception and judicial bias. There's a social perception that women are less dangerous, especially in sexual context. Male victims of female perpetrators often face disbelief or dismissal. In some cases, aren't pursued aggressively. Judges and juries may be more sympathetic to female defendants, especially if they are younger, attractive, and perceived as emotionally vulnerable. That's me. I'm not gonna lie. I have a hard time with this one. Even as a man, I have a hard time. I struggle with, seeing women as these like aggressive, like predatory people. But in certain situations, like one of the cases I've been covering in like the Christina Formella case, the kid was 14. He's 14 years old and she's sleeping with a 14-year-old at 28 years old. You gotta really like kind of think about like where she's at and where he's at. And like when you think about and maybe in this case it's not true, but on average a female's brain is much more developed than a man's brain. And a man at 14 years old, he's not even a man. A boy at 14 and a woman at 28 is much further along in her maturity levels than he is at 14 years old. It's actually bonkers if you vice versa and you reverse the roles, reverse the genders. You actually think about it, the younger females are actually a lot further along in their development, in the prefrontal cortex. You can look this up, is a lot further along, a lot more developed than the males is. So it's interesting to talk about. It's interesting to think about when type of victim matters. When men sexually offend against children, it's generally seen as predatory. When women sexually offend against minors, it's often downplayed, sometimes even viewed as less harmful or less serious, especially when the victim is an adolescent boy. Again, high profile cases like Mary Kay, I don't know how to pronounce that name, Deborah LaFoy, teachers who've had sex with teenage students, receive media coverage that sometimes romanticizes their actions. In contrast, men in equivalent positions typically face lengthy prison sentences and are labeled as predators. Conclusion: there is clear evidence of gender-based disparity in sentencing and societal treatment of sex crimes. Men are typically treated more harshly both by the courts and the public, while women often benefit from leniency, stereotypes, and judicial discretion. If you were man. So hey, there is smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and it might be legitimately a thing where these girls are getting off easy. It's something I've been questioning a little bit. I'm like, is this actually a real thing, or is this just something that the internet says? But looks like there's real solid evidence that this is what's happening. Anyways, let's jump back over to this Sarah chick with that knowledge of knowing, hey, there is a real chance that people like this, girls like this, they do get off of stuff like this. Cases like this get swept underneath the rug because we don't really look at her as like a real predator. Just being honest.
Consent.
Absolutely. And when the adult is a woman and the minor is a girl, does that challenge or complicate how abuse is perceived in court?
It does. This is something that it's always happened. Boy on boy, girl on girl. But each time it's a little bit different, and it's up to the law enforcement, here at Tuscaloosa Police Department, and potentially some state agencies like Child Protective Services to kind of get in there and figure out what's going on and what happened, and what level of grooming happened here, and is there a threat to other children?
Because we cover a lot of these cases, and sometimes viewers may say, oh, if it was a male teacher, it would be a lot different. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that when a jury does see a woman who is a wife or a mom, just, they don't look at it the same?
This incident happened in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
In Bama, it might be a little bit different, but we just went over it. It's a real thing. It's a real phenomenon. It's really is happening out there.
And so I actually went to college and law school at Alabama, and while I was on the law review, wrote a proposed law review on psychosocial behavior of jurors, and they do take in information based upon kind of what's in their bubble and what societal norms are. And so, when you have a teacher who, this is a small town, and this is a small school, private school within.
Like I said, it's going to be definitely worse in Bama for this happening. In Bama, definitely changes the dynamic a little bit. I think socially, people are going to look at her a little bit like, this fuck. Well, I don't know. On second thought, as I'm saying that, there's also going to be, it's tough. It's tough because it depends on how old they are. And since it's a female on female, I don't know. I think they're going to judge it harsher because it is female on female. If it was another man, if it was a young boy, I think the older men maybe, more conservative men, they tend to look at things like, a young man, trying to sleep with an older lady. They're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I used to be 16. I tried to do the same, and which is something I've said personally. I've said the same. I've said similar things as far as like, and when I was in ninth grade, there was a teacher, same thing. But with it being a girl, that's a tougher situation. But if there's multiple students and they find out, that's a whole nother story. I think that might be judged harsher in Bama. That's my overall conclusion. I think in Bama it's probably going to be charged. It's probably going to be looked at a little harsher, but there is some potential that she gets kind of a little bit more of a favorable stance, from more older conservative men potentially. If it, public wise, I don't know who's going to be on the juror. It's not like they're going to pick all men, so that's not likely. But I don't know. We'll figure out more about how that goes on as in the future.
A small town that's affiliated with the Baptist Church, and so there's a lot of things going on here that could go either way. It may be that a jury says, okay, well, the school's motto, let me look real quick. The school's motto was equipping students to glorify God. And here we have, this situation. They could hold her doubly responsible, or could look at the other aspects of her life and that, she made a mistake. But, some of that just rolls into sentencing, right? That's whether she's convicted or not really shouldn't matter if there was, evidence of, contact of a sexual nature with a minor.
Right. But you bring up a good point there, because like how you said, even though it shouldn't matter, this is still the South. You live in the South. I'm from the South. I'm from Louisiana. So we know that unfortunately things are a little different. Given the background with this being a religious school, and this is a teacher not only accused of a crime, because it would be bad if she was accused of any crime involving minors, but given that she's a woman charged with, this with the female student, of course she's innocent until proven guilty. Do you think just because, people go based off of what they know, that this could be worse for her?
I think so. In the justice is spelled one way, it's defined many different ways. And the main reason that we know about this is because Tuscaloosa Police Department has investigated and charged her with a crime. But Tuscaloosa, Alabama is a crazy little fishbowl. And it is super duper small. You run into the same people at the same grocery stores, no matter whether they live in Northport or, East Tuscaloosa. And so that's a problem in and of itself. Is the more publicity this gets, the more, problems she has. Like I looked at the school and they have all 22 of their teachers listed, including personal email. Now she's already off. I don't see her name on there, but that tells you kind of how small it is that this school's like, yeah, here's their personal email, contact them anytime. Like we don't have that for our teachers in Jacksonville, Florida, but she's got a lot of problems with this charge from, the standpoint of a small town court of public opinion, potential civil cases. Like we've taken cases against churches in this very light, and it's the church, it's the school, it's the teacher, it's there's negligent supervision and other things that weigh in, that the whole ball of justice is going to be providing some level of judgment, while also remembering this is a church school, and that's a whole different level of judgment that she's going to have to face, both from man and God.
Right. And we'll touch on the potential civil cases in a minute. But do you think that prosecutors face more pressure or scrutiny in cases involving female defendants?
I think he laid it out right there. Yeah. I was a little bit back and forth on what exactly I thought would happen, but yeah, the small town politics, is gonna probably get her. Probably gonna get her. It's probably gonna be tough, And the judge, I'm sure the judge is, writing there, incorporated in the city, and they got family and friends, and they're definitely subject. They're human too. They're subject to kind of getting swept up into the thoughts of the town, and the judge don't want to be seen as someone who's giving a predator a light sentencing. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
Female victims?
I mean, I think they used to, for sure. I think the cultural norm, at least
that picture does just not do her justice.
In Florida, where I'm mainly based, I'm licensed in 8 states and travel a lot, but there's more female teacher cases publicized now than there used to be. And, even dating all the way back, the old Court TV people remember the name Mary Kate Letourneau, like this pretty teacher that had, a young student that was kind of her boyfriend. And Mary Kate was attractive, and people judged her differently than if the roles were opposite, right? And so here, Absolutely. To your point, you have a female teacher with a female student.
I don't remember who this is. But I know, let's see. Where ChatGPT talked about her. So let's find out who she was. Yo. She ended up marrying the dude. He was a sixth grader. Mary Kate Letourneau made national headlines in 1997 when she became pregnant with the child of her 13-year-old student. After their affair was made public, Mary, a former teacher in Seattle, went to prison for nearly 8 years and gave birth to two of Billy's daughters, one of which was born behind bars. Billy was just 15 years old when their second child was born. The couple married in 2005, just 10 months after Mary was released from prison, and they will soon be celebrating their 10th wedding anniversary. Mary is 53, Billy is 31. They sat down for an exclusive interview with Barbara Walters in which they talked about raising their two teenage daughters. Oh my God, this is insane. She married him. She married the man. Holy hell. I don't know how to feel about that one. I don't know how to feel about that one at all. So that's a little background on her.
And it does seem different, but prosecutors are going to point out that ignore all that, like ignore the gender of everybody involved. This is a black and white, crime. This is a black letter of the law, abuse case, because a minor cannot give consent. We shouldn't look at necessarily what they wanted, what their relationship was. The fact is that a 35-year-old teacher, violated this student, and in a position of trust.
I think that's enough for me. I don't think they have a whole lot more information on what exactly is happening. I know that they just basically are saying she's been charged. It was interesting to get the lawyer's context, interesting to get his insight on what he thinks is going to happen. Seems like he's pretty intimate with the South as well as the show host. We'll see what comes of this. I don't think they have exactly any more information about the student that she was sleeping with, whether it be age or any of that. But we're going to keep following this this in the future. This lady, Sarah Logan, 35-year-old teacher, again, it's going to be interesting to see what exactly happens. And like I said at the beginning of the video, man, if you guys like this kind of stuff, I like to follow this stuff. Give me a follow. So on Twitch, I do it live. If you want to drop a subscription below, I'd love to see you guys back here. Give me a comment if you're really enjoying it, and a thumbs up maybe. I appreciate all of the love that I get, man. I honestly do. I'm really small, and I like to follow along and watch that number grow a little bit day by day. One subscriber means a lot to me. So thank you guys for being here, and I appreciate everyone who follows along.